Welcome to part 3 of DMX decoding with an Arduino, cutting the wires. If you remember, this is the code that we came up with in part 1 to decode the DMX data. In this part, we're going to modify this code to take the DMX data, and rather than use it to toggle the Arduino pins, we're going to send that data wirelessly. So the first thing that we're going to do is include the chibi wireless library. After that, we're going to define the destination address, and I'm going to use an address of 5. You can use any 16-bit address you want. Just make sure that the receiver is programmed with the correct address. Next, we're going to be initializing the chibi Arduino stack inside the setup function. After that, we're going to get to our main modification, and that's to remove the Arduino pin decoding logic and just transmit the data through the chibi stack. To transmit using the chibi wireless stack, we're going to use the chibi TX function. This function takes in 3 arguments. The first argument is the destination address. We set a define earlier for the destination address, and we're going to use it here. The second argument is a data array, and this is the array that we want to transmit. And so we're going to use a DMX data. And then the last argument is the size of the data array that we want to transmit. This should just be the DMX num channels define. This next modification is more of a performance optimization, and it has to do with when we set the update flag. In the original code, we set the update flag at the start of a new frame because that indicated that the previous frame was finished. In the original code, where we decode the DMX data and write directly to the Arduino pins, then it's okay. However, in this code, we're going to be writing data to the radio as well as acquiring data from the DMX stream at the same time, and that potentially can give us performance problems, such as losing DMX data. So instead, I'm going to be setting the update flag in the final state of the state machine where we're done collecting all of our DMX data and we're transitioning to the DMX idle state. At that point, we don't care about the DMX stream anymore, and it's safer to start writing data into the radio. And finally, we just need to clean up the code by removing the DMX pin array, which is now unused. I'm also going to be removing the code that initializes the Arduino pins because that is also unused. Okay, now that we finished the transmitter side of the code, we need to work on the receiver side. The receiver will be receiving the data wirelessly, decoding it, and toggling the Arduino pins. We're going to start with the base code of chibi example 2 from the chibi library. The first thing we're going to do is strip away everything that we don't need. After that, we're going to add in the receiver logic and also the decoding logic. After removing all the code that we're not going to use, we can start adding back in code. We're going to start off with some definitions. So the first definition will be the address of this node, and the address, if you remember, is going to be 5. After that, then we're going to set up the DMX number of channels, and that will be 4. Now we need to set up the DMX pins, and in this case we're going to use pins 4, 5, 6, and 7. Previously we used pins 8, 9, 10, and 11, but those pins conflict with the SPI bus, and the SPI bus is used to talk to the wireless radio. Now that the pins have been declared, it's time to initialize everything in our setup function. There's 2 main things that we need to do. The first is to set our address, and the second is to initialize our pins to be output and also to output a low value. Now we're going to work on our loop function. Inside our loop function, we're going to implement our receiver logic. The first line checks the wireless radio to see if any data has been received. If it has, then we're going to execute the code inside the if statement's brackets. Once we receive data wirelessly, then we need to decode that data and decide if we want to toggle the Arduino pins or not. I'm going to be adding a length variable here, and when we execute the function chibi get data, that does 2 things. It actually populates the data buffer that we pass into it, and it also returns the length of the data that we received. Once we have that length, then we can check to make sure that it's the same as the length that we expect. If that check passes, then we can proceed to implement the receiver logic. That logic is going to be exactly the same as what we implemented previously. The decoder is going to be very simple. We're going to look at each element in the array of data that we received. If that element is non-zero, then we're going to toggle the corresponding Arduino pin high. If it's 0, then we're going to toggle the corresponding Arduino pin low. Now that we have the transmitter and receiver code finished, it's time to start hooking things up. So let's start with the receiver, since we're going to need to interface that to our LED display. So if you remember, this is the previous circuit that we came up with, and we're going to slightly modify it. So we have the Arduino pins broken out on this board, and we're going to take those off. So those pins were driving the LEDs, or switching the LEDs before. And now we don't want that. We want the switching of the LEDs to come from this wireless board. So we're going to connect this one up. So pins 4, 5, 6, and 7 are going to be driving this board now. So along with connecting up the signals, we need to connect ground and power, because we're not going to use the power for this board anymore. So this board is just going to become a regular breadboard. So I'm going to hook up 5 volts over here, and we need to connect up the ground as well. So here is the ground, and we are finished. So this is going to be our board, or this is going to be our receiver. Let's put this aside. And so for our transmitter, it's going to be very simple. We're just going to connect this up to the PC. So this one will be receiving the DMX signals and decoding them. Okay, so we're about to start this up. The software is ready to go. Let's see, here is the transmitter. Transmitter is connected to the PC. And for a dramatic effect, I put the receiver outside of this room, outside my door right there. And it's going to receive the data wirelessly, decode it, and toggle the LEDs. Here you go.
Well, that concludes this tutorial on DMX decoding with an Arduino. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you do any cool projects, feel free to let me know. I'd love to hear about it.